Good afternoon. I'm Scott Mulwee. I'm your Vice Chairman of the Burke County Commissioners, and I'm here today to host another Fireside Chat. We've been doing these for about 18 months, and it's been a little bit since we had a little bit of pause since Brian Epley, our county manager, and I have gotten together to do these. So we try to come up with topics we think would be of importance and interest, whether it be budget or school funding, which we're going to be talking about later today, but also topics that are timely, and one of those is obviously the Great Meadows Industrial Park. And so there's been a lot of talk and gossip out in the community, and we just wanted to get together and give you some facts about where we are in the process, and maybe through this conversation we can dispel some of the myths that are out there, because I think we need to do sometimes a better job of communicating where we are, what we're doing, and that is the whole point of Fireside Chats. And so today I'm going to turn it over to Brian Epley, and he's going to tell us where we are with the Great Meadows Industrial Park.
Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today to talk about something. I think timing is the the main point. With a project of this size and something that offers this type of transformational opportunity, there comes a level of community interest that we really need to do a better job of as an industry, not just in Burke County, but local government in general. I think as an industry needs to do a better job of communication and really telling our story. And so, trying to use this type of platform to communicate, objective, factual assertions, I think is an important part of that, and I think I just tip my hat to you for providing the platform. I've got a short presentation that I hope, again, our goal today is simply to inform. Many of you may know that there was a petition for rezoning that was scheduled to be heard by the Burke County Planning Board back in December. At this point, that's been tabled until March, and the reason for that continuance was so that at a county level we could pause and really take some time to hear, consider, and provide feedback to the community, because the simple truth is at the pace at which that project was moving and that application was moving, there were more questions than there were provided ample time to answer. And so we'll talk a little bit about this as we move forward, but we've been at a professional staff level trying to meet with folks and meet with groups and meet with homeowners associations and anyone who's reached out to staff to try to provide these points. And today I think is a good opportunity for us to continue to spread that message. So we'll jump right in. The first thing that I'd like to say is before we consider and talk about what is being evaluated and what is being considered, I think it's more importantly to talk about why economic development is important. And if we do a good job of explaining the why, I think it's easier to resonate and to consider and to understand what is going to happen. And if we do, the risk of not doing that, of not understanding why economic development is important and why why local government would be leveraging public policy in any area, is that it creates this gap, which is confusion. Oftentimes that creates frustration. It's costly, and so again, this intentionality to communication hopefully helps close that gap and makes the what make a little bit more sense. So why is economic development a public policy priority, and why is it something that the Board of Commissioners and the county have a responsibility in trying to facilitate? Well, number one, we have a responsibility and a fiduciary role in trying to provide a pathway to high-paying jobs. High-paying jobs promote economic mobility, and I'll talk more about shortly why that's not only important as an industry to our economy, but specifically here in Burke County, we're still in a reinventing mode of our local economy. And then secondly, we have to continue to look for innovative ways to invest in the tax base. An increasing tax base provides for an opportunity for a lower taxing rate, and something that we have to keep in mind is The cost of local government services, whether you're buying an ambulance or you're providing a law enforcement officer, those are real costs, and it's critical that we look for ways to fund those in an equitable way. So again, this concept of public policy in Burke County, there's some population trends that I think economic development has a role in trying to solve. We're in a good place today, but if we don't make some strategic investments in 10 years, our workforce really will be in a challenging spot. We also in this community have some real intense pockets of poverty, and the concept of economic development investment really will prove to solve a lot of those challenges. And then lastly, I'd like to make an argument that these type of investments help maintain economic relevancy really for the region of Western North Carolina. I'll quickly move through these population trends data points. The first thing that I'd say is economic development in 2023 is dependent upon labor. Site location consultants who work to help provide sites and opportunities for these companies do surveys annually, and they consistently are listing labor availability and cost as their top priorities. And we've continued to see this contraction of the labor market really globally, but here in Burke County too. And that's driven really by two fundamental reasons. One is we've seen since really the onset of COVID, we've seen this mass exodus of the baby boomer population from the workforce via an increased proportionate share of retirement. So if you imagine a bell curve of the labor force, and on the right-hand side, you have these folks that are 55 years and older retiring at an unprecedented rate. And then you bolt onto that what we've seen as a trend now for almost 2 decades in the United States and in North Carolina, which is declining birth rates. You have a limited supply with an expedited exodus on one side, and that's led to declining populations in total, but certainly a contracting labor force. The last 2 censuses in Burke County have seen a declining population. And here you can see a map where we're actually labeled a dying county, which simply means its definition is the migration out rate, people moving away and the people dying, is exceeding the people moving here and being born. Now I'd say in the last 12 months, there's been a phenomenon that's beginning to change that, and our population is once again seeing some growth in total, but that's because of domestic migration. When we look at the United States map here, you can see that dark purple there in the Midwest, Northeast. So that's an indication, if you see the key there, of people fleeing. That's showing that there's more than a 15% domestic migration out rate. And most of those are coming to the southeastern United States. And you can see there in western North Carolina, Burke County's, from a domestic migration perspective, projected to grow at about 5 to 15% from those people leaving those other areas. One of the outcomes of that is housing. So folks are leaving those high cost of living, those areas with challenging environments and climates. They're coming here and they're consuming all of the housing supply, and that's driving up housing prices. One thing that I like to point out, in September 2023, the average house in Burke County sold for $341,000. And when you compare that with a 6.5–7% borrowing rate, the average median the household income to buy that house, the average person would need to make about $100,000, and that's far greater than what our average household income is. So mathematically, it is a real challenge, if not impossible, for a Burke County consumer and citizen to even buy a home. And that's a direct product of migration in. And so we see these folks coming from really all around. When we evaluate our population organically, without migration, it's projected to be flat over the next 40 years. We continue to age in place. Here's a quick optic of the average age of a Burke County citizen, and you can see over the last 25 years that has consistently continued to rise, which means that we're not replacing ourselves with a younger, more workforce-aged component. And this map simply shows that the red line is Burke County's proportionate share population compared to the state average. And for the folks that are 55 and over, we have a higher proportionate share. For the folks that are under the age of 18, we are lower. And for that group that's currently in the workforce age, over 18 and lower than 60, we are significantly lower. And so the point is, if we are able to use economic development and job creation to turn around some of those population trends, 10 years from now we'll be in a much better spot. I also think that economic development is a tool to help offset poverty. Here's a quick map of overdose deaths, and we know that Burke County ranks about 90th out of 100 counties when adjusted for population and substance abuse disorder and overdose deaths, which unproportionately tends to impact the lower socioeconomic members of our community. Here's another optic, I think, that helps demonstrate these pockets of poverty. This is measuring our number of children in foster care. The blue bar there at the top shows county populations in our region, total population, and that orange line is the average number of children in the county's foster care program at any one point in time. And as you can see, in Burke County, it's unproportionately high at about 187 when compared to our county population. And again, I think that's another indication of substance use disorder, of poverty, and really, at times, lack of economic mobility. Here's another data point that I think continues to tell the story. Currently in Burke County, about 1 out of 5 children live in poverty. As you can see, that's higher than both the state and the national average. And that leads to food insecurities. About 18.5% of our young people under the age of 18, live in constant food insecurity. And I think, again, there's an opportunity, there's an argument that economic development and strategic investments will help offset some of that. Here's an interesting data point that we call opportunity youth. So this is essentially young people who have finished high school, and after high school they did not join the military. They're not showing up on an employment roster, and they also aren't enrolled in higher education, community college, or post-secondary university. 1 out of 4 children after their high school term is over here in Burke County, we kind of lose track of them. And I think that really ensues a responsibility to try to give options there. Lastly, I would point out economic relevancy, and what I mean by that is Western North Carolina is at a disadvantage. When you look at the other 7 large industrial projects in North Carolina, there's nothing west of I-77, and that really puts our children in a place, I believe, that if they want the same opportunity, that they have to travel east. I'd point out that a project of that size, those 7 in North Carolina, when you look at what their average output is, they can equate to about $145 to $150 million regional economic energy infusion when you look at payroll for jobs and average wages and direct and induced impact. And also at a local level, they have the opportunity to really generate some significant tax base. For a project of about $3 billion, that would equate to about 18 cents on the Burke County tax rate, which is a meaningful difference when we look at continued ways to lower the tax rate. I'll leave you with this as we talk about why is economic development important. When I compare the 4 counties that are a little bit to our east in our MSA economic development region, they've all got about a $22.5 billion tax base on average. But when I zoom in on the counties that may be more directly impacted from a project of this size in Western North Carolina, our average tax base is lower than $9 billion. And that's a significant, almost 60% lower number that puts us at a significant competitive disadvantage. So that's why I think it's important to understand population trends, addressing some pockets of poverty, and really trying to maintain economic relevancy. That's why economic development at a policy level, I think, is something that we have a responsibility to evaluate. Now we'll talk more specifically about this particular project, and we know that there's a lot of misinformation. We know that there's some ownership on the petitioner and some ownership on the county and everybody involved on the public side to do a better job of communicating, and in the absence of good communication, oftentimes assumptions are forced to be made. But these are some of the things that we've known. We've heard that there's going to be mass land impact of more than 1,300 acres. We've heard that there's environmental concerns, specifically air, soil, and water contamination. We've heard municipal drinking water will be impacted, traffic challenges, and then things like noise, light, and sound pollution are imminent. And we just want to systematically kind of walk through what some of those concerns are and how some may be addressed and how others are just falsehoods. They're just not relevant to what we're talking about. For those of you who may not know, the conversation is being centered around a rezoning application for a large industrial development opportunity in western Burke County. This would be off exit 94 on Dyesertsville Road. So on the bottom of this map, I-40 is running east to west. Dyesertsville Road and 70 are running on the northern end of the property. In total, all of this property is owned by a privately held company called Great Meadows LLC. There's about 1,353 acres that is for sale. About 240 of those acres are located in McDowell County. The remaining balance, we'll call it 1,100 acres, is in Burke County. About half of that's already zoned commercial. So here you can see the parcels that are in Burke County along with the zoning map. The purple is already zoned industrial, so site 11, which is the predominant share, is already there. The red would be a general business zoning district already. And then you can see the aggregate parcels there, and each of those are numbered. And so we want to talk through kind of what's happened since the original application was filed on this property back in December, and really help draw some, clear up some misunderstandings. The first thing that I would say is this is a zoomed in, here on the left is a zoomed in version of Site 11. Site 11, as a reminder, is the largest parcel. It's about half of the total acreage in Burke County. It's about 550 acres. Of that 550 acres, 440 of it's already zoned industrial, and the other 110, and you can see it in red there, parcel number 13, is zoned general business. And that's been that way for a long, long time, a couple decades, really since county zoning started in 1997. So we've zoomed in on Site 11 there and really said, out of the 550 acres, how much of that could be developed for some type of manufacturing industrial use? And really there's three pads that could be developed, and they add up to about 165 acres. So you're talking of the 550 acres, about 30% is net developable. And from an economic development lens, that provides more than enough area to put the needed square footage there to make this a transformational economic development project, to create the jobs that would be meaningful to Burke County, to create the tax base that would be meaningful to Burke County. And if you recall, those are our two primary goals. But I'd point out, with only 30% net developable, that leaves 70% of the property essentially not developed and used for buffering and used for to offset all of the concerns that we all know are there with noise pollution, light pollution. It gives us plenty of room for setbacks from stream remediation. It gives us plenty of room to do really some innovative stormwater retention to make sure sediment and those type things aren't getting in watersheds and getting into rivers and streams and creeks, that wildlife has plenty of environment to continue to flourish. And I just think that is a much different outlook than maybe the 1,300 acres of clearing and grading that a lot of folks have heard. So really, as we've moved through this process of meeting with community members and other other stakeholders that really have a lot of subject matter expertise in this, such as the Foothills Conservancy and the Catawba Riverkeeper and Lake James Environmental, and these public meetings that we've been holding, we've been able to arrive at two additional considerations, two strategies for moving forward. The first one is what we're calling right-sizing the rezoning application. And what that means is, when you look at all of the parcels that make up the roughly 1,100 acres in Burke County, a lot of them never were intended to be developed for industrial purposes, and really offer no value to the site development. And so when you look at this map now, the parcels that have the blue X on them, moving forward there'll be a modified application that removes those. And it really takes the rezoning application down to about 300 acres, and all of the site development would be basically on parcel 11, parcel 8, and parcel 10. All of the other ones would be acquired, but not part of the rezoning application. And again, the goal is high-paying jobs that provide economic mobility for our citizens and tax base. And between those 2 or 3 parcels, those are the opportunities to generate those goals, to generate the development. And all of those, as we saw here with the net developable acreage, can be accomplished. So this first concept is right-sizing the rezoning application, and we hope that that helps clear up a lot of misunderstandings about what will be developed and what may not be developed. The second consideration is the adoption of conditional rezoning. Currently in Burke County, conditional rezoning hasn't historically been used, but we think this is a good pilot project to begin that. And what that means is that we can impose development standards, meaning that we can regulate uses. So things like carbon plants that we've heard, mining operations, asphalt plants, landfills, things like that we've heard are concerns that we know, A, were never intended to be the end user of the project, but B, really the community and some of our other partners and stakeholders are looking for assurances that that won't be the end users. We can put that into as a condition, meaning the rezoning is only being considered if those uses are prohibited. We also can consider the rezoning with additional bufferings and setbacks and road accesses, et cetera. You get the idea, but it allows these development standards to be put in place to provide the assurances needed that not only will the application be right-sized, but it will also there'll be development standards in place similar to deed restrictions or homeowner association requirements to give you some assurance of what the end product will look like. And again, we're working through some of these public input sessions along with our other partners and subject matter experts on what some of those development standards should be. So I'll leave you with this slide that really, again, demonstrates this quote, right-sized application. There'll be about a 300-acre amended application for rezoning. I hope that as we continue to move through these listening sessions with everyone who's interested, certainly I would invite folks, if they have additional questions, to reach out to our office. We're eagerly holding these meetings and these dialogue forums with anyone who has interest. We're trying to keep our groups between 15 and 20 folks simply because our experience is bigger than that. Some voices get drowned out, and we want to provide an opportunity and a platform for everybody's voice to be heard. And so we, again, would invite those opportunities, and we'll be providing additional information through as many meetings as we can, as we move forward. So, Scott, I'll turn it back over to you. You may have specific questions, or you may want to summarize what we've talked about, but I hope this has been helpful to the community and provided a lot of needed information.
That is a lot of information, and like I said, you and I have talked about pushing this information out there so we can get this project right-sized and get rid of some misconceptions. As Commissioner, obviously, one of our biggest responsibilities is bringing jobs, and this is an opportunity, and obviously this has been looked at for decades. And moving forward, this is a great opportunity, but the bigger the opportunity, the more responsibility we have as commissioners to make sure this is done in the correct way, because this will be a legacy project for many of us. But I think getting the misconceptions out of the way, I did have one of my friends call and say, "I hear you're clear cutting 1,300 acres," and I told him at the time, before we even drilled down this far, I said, no, most of this is undevelopable. And as somebody that is a lifelong resident, I've fished and hunted in that exact area and floated streams, dove hunted. I float the Catawba River all the time. I'm head of the Tourism Development Authority. I know folks have said it's going to affect tourism, but I know tourism dollars last year exceeded $130 million for Burke County, which is pretty remarkable. It's grown astronomically because we protect our environment and our view sheds. And we've been very cautious in developing in a responsible way, and I can guarantee you, we will continue to do so. So we will exceed buffer requirements, whether it's water, sound, whatever it is. We're going to make sure this is done in a responsible way. And let's face it, we live in a beautiful county, and we're going to keep it a beautiful county. But also, this gives us an opportunity to increase the tax base in a responsible way. So I would encourage anyone that has questions, attend one of these mini community meetings. Do we have those on the website, Brian?
We've been scheduling them on an almost a la carte basis as people reach out, putting groups together. We have a community forum this Sunday with about 40 folks at 1:30 on Sunday.
Okay.
But as requests come in, we've been piecing them together, and it's been highly successful.
Well, and I think we've actually, you have planned at least 10 from what I
That's
saw.
right.
So if you have questions, please reach out. We obviously want any input you have, and we really appreciate you listening to this presentation today. I appreciate Brian and Scott and Alan Glines and Scott Black putting this presentation together. It's a lot of work, so I just get to show up and kind of moderate, so I really appreciate the input. And join us next time on Fireside Chats. We'll have some more relevant topics to talk about. So I hope everyone has a good day. Thank you.